It's raining outside. I hope it won't be a disturbance to us. Today's lesson is Albert Schweitzer by G.F. Lamb. Albert Schweitzer grew up in the Alsatian village of Gansbach. He was the son of a clergyman, and right from his childhood, he was a very kind-hearted little boy. He just hated to watch people or animals suffering. Once, when he was a child, he saw two men beating up an old horse to take it to the slaughterhouse to be killed. The narrator says that many people feel shy to stand up and criticize these thoughtless acts of cruelty because they, I guess, feel shy or feel afraid that people might start calling them sentimental or emotional, like chicken heart. But Albert Schweitzer decided that he would never let himself feel guilty of such a weakness, that when he grows up, he would do something about it. Apart from being a kind-hearted human being, he was also a very talented musician, a very talented organist. At the age of 9, he started playing the organ at his father's church during the service. And his parents encouraged his musical talent that at the age of 18, he went to see Mr. Wither, who was one of the best organists of those days. And when Mr. Wither heard Albert Schweitzer playing the musical piece composed by the famous musician Bach, he knew that Albert Schweitzer was no ordinary child, that he was very talented. Albert Schweitzer also told Mr. Widor that he learned to play the organ at the Mulhouse from his teacher Eugene Munch. He also told Mr. Widor that when he grew up, he wanted to be in the missionary just like his father. But Mr. Widor tells him not to neglect his musical talents. As Albert grew up, he won the scholarship that helped him to study theology at the University of Strasbourg, capital of Alsace. At the age of 21, when he was still a student and in the university, he was sitting on the grounds of the university and was contemplating about what a blessed life he had and how he was so fortunate to enjoy such a pleasant life. Many of his friends had to leave studies to start earning. But he, as the son of the minister or the pastor, he received better opportunities than his friends. Suddenly, he felt so overwhelmed with gratitude for all the blessings in his life. He began to think that it was very easy for a person to become selfish. He thought, I should not become selfish, and I must remember to be helpful to others in return of the happiness that I have received. Then he went on to think that, okay, now I'm 21, I'll give myself 9 years, and within those 9 years, I'll accomplish whatever I need. And by the time I reach 30, I must devote the rest of my life to relieve the sufferings of other people. Here the narrator says that, yes, many young people think the same way at some point in their life about helping others and about contributing to the society and such gracious deeds after becoming successful in the future. But only few managed to actually do it. And Albert Schweitzer was among the few. He was about to reach 30, so it was time that he thought of ways best he could service to the suffering humanity. He started taking care of the neglected orphan children, but it was not as practical as he had expected. So he started working for the welfare of the wandering beggars and the discharged prisoners. He realized that he could not accomplish much on his own, though. So he decided that it was best handled by organizations, and he shifted to doing good things in a more personal and independent way. One day he saw an article in Paris Evangelical Mission magazine that spoke about the need of medical workers in Belgian Congo and French Equatorial Africa, and instantly decided that this was what he was going to do. By now, he was already a clergyman, a philosopher, and a great organist, but he made up his mind to become a doctor specialized in tropical diseases to help Africans. The narrator G.F. Lamb calls this decision a heroic one because it meant that Albert Schweitzer have to leave his job that he really loved to do, being a clergyman. Secondly, it meant several years of studies in the field of medicine. And also, not only that, but when he goes to Africa, to the mission center or to the mission area where he wanted to serve, he would have to build his own hospital. He had to build hospital on his own expense. It was not an easy job. It was a sacrificing job. But he was true to his calling and he studied medicine for nearly 7 years. And then he went to Paris to study tropical diseases. Meanwhile, his wife, whom he married in 1912, was training to be a nurse to help him in Africa. The Paris Evangelical Mission had a mission station at Lambarene in French Equatorial Africa. About 200 miles up the river from Cape Lopez, it was an evangelical mission. He got the permission to live in a mission area and that he would build his hospital in the mission station. And he had to face some arguments because he was not a member of the mission, but he still got permission. He carefully packed his medicine supplies and other necessities in over 70 cases, and in one special zinc-lined case box was a special piano presented to him by the Paris Bach Society. Then he left for Africa, leaving behind his comfortable lifestyle behind. It was a long sea voyage and another hour's journey on a canoe to reach the village of Lambarene. Schweitzer's new home there was a wooden house with 4 rooms and a veranda. He was yet to build a hospital, so at first when he reached, he took care of his patients outside his house, and it was very tiring to work in the hot sun. And whenever there was a storm, they had to quickly drag the things into the veranda. That was how he started in the beginning. Later on, for a short period of time, they built an emergency hospital in a small animal house. And it was small and dirty and had no windows. Uncomfortable, but at least better than working out in the sun. Now the next problem was to get an interpreter. And they engaged a black person by the name Nzeng, who was working in Ogawe, but things did not work out. But fortunately for Albert, there was a French-speaking African who agreed to work with him by the name Joseph. Joseph agreed to work as Albert's interpreter for 70 francs a month. Before this, Joseph had been working as a cook at Cape Lopez. That's why he knew a little bit of French. But he had to leave his job because of health issues and he returned to Lambarene. He would call Albert as Oganga, which means great one or big fellow. The good thing was that Joseph was not disgusted by the pus and the blood of the injured, but the problem was that he would use cooking terms to explain the wounds of the people. He would say, the man's right leg of mutton hurts him, or he would say, the person has a pain in his left cutlet. The narrator goes on to explain about a typical day in Albert Schweitzer's life in Lambarene in his hospital or surgery. Every day at 8:30 in the morning, he would arrive when Joseph would read out the rules to the patients in their dialect. Oganga's orders: you must not speak near his house, do not speak loudly, bring enough food for the whole day, because the treatment sometimes would take too long. These rules would be read aloud by Joseph in their dialect, and then each patient would take their turns to enter into the small primitive hospital and tell them their problems. And Joseph would interpret it. These patients explained their injuries as worms or evil spirits. If they had a pain in their leg or stomach, they would say, the worm is in my leg, or my stomach is troubled with an evil spirit. The doctor, Albert Schweitzer, would carefully examine the patients and give suitable treatment and medicines to consume or ointment to apply on their wound. Joseph would explain them carefully on how to use the medicine. He would keep saying, you understand? Do you understand? And the patient would confidently say, yes, yes, I understand. But when they got home, they would drink up the whole week's medicine in one go. Or even worse, instead of applying the ointment on their wounds, they would eat it up. You know, just like when the lecturers or teachers assign you with an assignment or work and give you instructions, they tell you, do you understand? Any doubt? Any questions? And you say, no, we understand. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, we understand. And then you go back home and you do the totally opposite chaotic work that the world can ever imagine. And in the end, both the lecturer and you would be confused, thinking, where did that come from? Who can understand the hospital of Albert Schweitzer better than you? Anyway, back to our lesson. The Dr. Albert Schweitzer and Joseph would give each patient a disc-like coupon where numbers were written so that they would hang around their neck, for identity purpose. And when the patient is seated, the doctor would note the number, note the medicine, note their wounds, note their complaints, and the treatment that they needed. Surprisingly, these patients, they never lost that coupon because they thought it was some kind of a charm, healing charm. At 12:30, Joseph would come out and announce that it was lunchtime, and the patients would sit down and take out their tiffins, whatever they brought from home, and eat. And Albert Schweitzer would also go and have his lunch. After having his lunch, for 1 hour, Albert Schweitzer would go to his old piano and play his music. That is when the music of Bach would fill the forest. The narrator says that these little musical breaks kept Albert Schweitzer intellectually alive. Otherwise, in this kind of jungle, it was very easy for a person to become stale or stagnant, mentally stale or stagnant. Then he would come back and would continue his work in the surgery from 2 p.m. till 6 p.m. Even after working the whole day like this, the patients would still be in waiting. But in a mosquito-infested jungle as this, it became very difficult for Albert to continue his work under the lamplight. It was indeed a tiring job to stay away from the comforts of his home and work in a place with unbearable weather conditions without knowing the dialects of the people and very limited medical resources. However, Schweitzer felt rewarding for all the difficulties and disappointments when he saw the look on the face of the patients, the look of obvious joy shown by the smiling people and their pain relieved and their sores bandaged. He felt rewarded knowing that he was true to his calling and that he was serving humanity in its truest sense. His noble works led him to win the Nobel Prize for Peace. Crazy how some people can think so much for the world, but the betterment for the world, and think so less of themselves. Crazy, but good crazy. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.